Advocacy Council.
Good Monday morning, Jonesboro. This is meteorologist Tim Root with your KLEK 102.5 forecast. Lots of clouds today. Temperatures will range from 52 to 58. Northeast wind at 10. Partly to mostly cloudy, maybe a stray shower tonight in the low 40s. A better chance of showers Tuesday. Partly to mostly cloudy in the mid to upper 50s. Cloud showers and thunderstorms, gusty winds on Wednesday, and the high in the low 70s. Jonesboro, that's your KLEK 102.5 FM weather.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. Planemaker Boeing's under pressure over its 737 MAX 8 model after the Ethiopian Airlines crash on Sunday, which killed 157. North Koreans have voted in parliamentary elections for the second time since Kim Jong-un took power. His party will secure unanimous support. Downing Street says talks with the EU on changes to the backstop element in the Brexit deal remain deadlocked. MPs are due to vote on the agreement again on Tuesday.
It's 9:01.
KLEK LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday to you. I hope that you're having a great start to your day. You're tuned into Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. I'm your host, Kabila Jones, and my special guests today are Mr. Mark Holden, who's an RN at St. Bernard's Medical Center, and he is where he serves as a stroke coordinator. And we have Dr. Randy McComb, who is also an education director. Or ED?
The ED medical director and then the stroke team director.
Okay, which stands for emergency room.
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Let me make a note of that so I won't get that wrong again. And also serves as a stroke team director, also at St. Bernard's Medical Center. So I thank you all for joining me this morning. So let's talk about how long have both of you been working, specifically with stroke awareness, Doctor?
Well, I've been in emergency medicine for 30 years, but over the last 15 years, there's been more and more emphasis on stroke and early detection of stroke, and then we've also had recent advancements in drugs that we can use to break up the clots for strokes in the last 10 years.
All right, so before someone actually has a stroke, if they are vigilant about their health care, can you notice signs? Are there any signs to say that someone is at risk of having a stroke?
Oh, absolutely. We like to use the term be fast, which if there's any changes in a patient's balance or any visual changes, any type of weakness in the face, facial droop, change in their smile, any kind of arm drift or slurred speech, we would want you to think that that's a stroke or early signs of a stroke, and you need to be seen in an emergency department at that time.
All right. And then I'm going to ask Mr. Mark, before we get too deep into the conversation, give you time to tell us how long have you been with...
Well, I've actually been in stroke director for about 2 years.
Okay.
I have a lot of experience with stroke with different family members that have had different strokes. Really, before I became in nursing, which really wasn't very knowledgeable about what was going on. Okay. But now that I have the knowledge behind it, I wish I could have done more to the situation.
And I'm sure that many of us have had family, friends, co-workers, someone that we've encountered that has had a stroke, and we say, I wish I knew more. Like I was sharing with you a little bit about my family. I wish I knew more. And then even after the fact, I think sometimes people are not as aware of what the aftercare involves. So, but before we get into the aftercare, let's go back into someone has a stroke. Now, recognizing the signs as they're going through is very important. But even before then, when they think they are just living a normal life, are there ways to recognize?
Usually you do things, there's preventive measuring, exercise, seeing your doctor regularly, doing labs, your cholesterol, keeping it managed, keeping your blood pressure controlled, if you're on blood pressure medicine, taking it, keeping your systolic about 120 and your diastolic about 80, keeping that under control.
Okay.
Just healthy habits and not smoking. That's one of them.
Okay. All right, and so I'm sure, Dr. Randy, you've seen quite a few people that have come to the ER. Do you that are not doing some things they should be doing?
Correct.
So do you, at that time, try to educate them on, okay, here's what I recognize?
Yeah, we do. We try to educate them on management of their blood pressure, cholesterol, and smoking cessation. It's very important to exercise regularly and try to live a healthier lifestyle. Many strokes that we see are very preventable if we'll just modify our lifestyle.
Okay. Do you have people that kind of fight against you, buck against you, and say, I'm fine, I'm healthy, I don't need to do that? You know, do you get combative patients?
Sometimes, but most, I'd say most patients are willing to listen, and I think that the key to us really preventing strokes is just through education and just informing people and letting them know that you can take charge of your life and prevent this, because it's just such a devastating thing if you have one.
You do have people who they have what they call mini strokes or TIAs, transient ischemic strokes, and these are things where they have full stroke symptoms, but then they symptoms are resolved, and these people, they think they're all right, but those are the warning signs for a bigger stroke.
Yeah.
So they want to take those serious and get that checked out to see why did they have those symptoms. A lot of people will ignore them. They go about their business, or if they come in the hospital and they get seen and they can't find out the reason, they might just ignore it and go about their lifestyle.
We try to admit everyone that has a TIA, and that's really changed over the past 20 years. People that are having TIAs are much more likely to go on and have a major stroke. So if you're at home and you get better, you still need to go to the ER and not disregard that because that is really a warning sign.
Do you find that some people disregard your warnings that have had a TIA? They feel that, okay, now I have to readjust my life. I have to live life more aware, more on, just kind of almost in ready battle mode, that type of, and they don't either know how to adjust or don't want to adjust.
Well, you do have people that are that way, and it's education. They're being seen and learning, but a lot of it is the severity of their stroke. If someone has a pretty major stroke, that's a wake-up call. They're going to they have no choice but to do the thing to change their lifestyle.
Okay.
But if someone has a minor stroke, they're more apt to ignore it probably.
Once you can get their family involved in, and the family recognizes what a TIA is they're educated and they really start paying closer attention.
Okay. All right. Again, we're speaking with Mr. Mark Holden, RN at St. Bernard's Medical Center, and Dr. Randy McComb. And both these individuals work with stroke awareness, stroke prevention. And so we're hopefully, I hope that you're taking notes and you're, talking to your family and you're having these regular conversations and becoming more aware of what's happening in your own life. Taking those preventative measures so that hopefully you do not suffer a stroke. And I hate to use the word suffer, but actually, what I've witnessed, it is a form of suffering. Individuals' lives are totally changed after they've dealt with this.
People don't realize, stroke are the 5th leading cause of death
Really?
in the United States, and the number 1 cause of disability, leading to long-term or permanent placement in nursing homes.
So let's talk about how does it lead to death? How do strokes lead to death?
Well, there's two different types of stroke. One's a hemorrhagic stroke, and the other is what we call an ischemic stroke. A hemorrhagic stroke is where you actually have bleeding into the brain, which is very devastating with physical weakness on one side or the other, or can even result in death. And ischemic strokes often affect one side of the brain or the other, but can leave you permanently paralyzed on one side or the other, just varying degrees of paralysis. So you're going from being completely independent to maybe not even being able to dress yourself in the morning, which is really devastating, requiring somebody to take care of you all the time. So that's why it's so important.
Alrighty. And when someone has had a stroke, say it is not as detrimental as the hemorrhagic or ischemic, but it's more severe than a TIA. and again, I'm using my mom as a reference. She was able to dress herself, but her clothes were inside out or backwards. She wasn't able to do some of her normal daily functions, so I had to help her with a lot of things, and it just her mindset was not as sharp anymore as it was. So kind of walk us through what people can expect, and why we need to be more patient with individuals that have had strokes, and just how to really be there and support them through the process.
Well, the biggest thing with strokes is that the brain controls every function of your body: your breathing, your memories,
Okay.
your balance. So different areas of your brain, the vascular system, can become ischemic because of the bleed or the blockage. So depending on the area of their brain that's affected can affect what functionality they have. So that plays a big part on it. So part of the diagnosis of a stroke, they do a CT scan or MRI to figure out what area of the brain has been affected. So that will kind of determine some of the deficits that we see.
All right. And so what, once someone has a stroke, what then is the next process as far as physical therapy? Do they go straight home, like hospital care? Kind of walk us through that whole process.
Well, the reason we want you to come right away, as early as possible, as soon as the symptoms develop, is because we now have clot-busting drug called TPA that if we can catch your stroke within 4.5 hours, we can give a clot-busting drug and could potentially completely reverse your stroke symptoms. And then up to 24 hours, there's a capability of actually going in and removing the clot with a mechanical device that they use at UAMS in Little Rock and also at Methodist University in Memphis. So it's really important to get there within that 4.5 hours. As soon as you develop the symptoms, we can give that drug. You can go on and have that clot removed mechanically, even if you've already had TPA. So there's a couple of things we can do in that first 24 hours, and the sooner you can get there, the better your chances are of reversing the symptoms of the stroke.
And be warned, a lot of people when they start they feel funny or they kind of ignore the symptoms, will go lay down. Well, we have a thing that lasts well known. If you go to sleep at 8 o'clock and you wake up at 1 o'clock and you're showing the symptoms at 1 o'clock, well, they say 8 o'clock was your last well known. You're out of the window for TPA.
So it's so important not to if you're having symptoms late at night, to go to bed and say, well, this is going to get better overnight. I feel fine now, because you're out of the window. We're really losing that opportunity to give you a potentially life-saving drug.
Oh, wow. So aside from the symptoms that are listed, with the acronym FAST, like what are some telltale? Is there dizziness? Is there... So,
I'll break them down again. For B, for balance, a person is falling down, they can't keep their balance. People who drink can have strokes, and that kind of masks the symptoms of the balance. For the eyes, they can have temporary blindness, or they'll have double vision. That doesn't resolve. Double vision isn't normal, so we don't want to ignore that. For the face, you have facial drooping. The person that's having the stroke won't recognize that. Somebody that's with them will see that, and they should know that's not normal. Now, people that have had strokes in the past might have permanent drooping. And people that live with them have to be able to notice those differences. But those people will notice it if they eat or drink something. Water will just spill out of their mouth. They can't hold it in. For the arms, just arm weakness, where if they pick up something like a pencil or a fork, it just falls.
Or you can have them hold their arms straight out, and one arm will drift down.
Okay.
So they can't maintain balance between the two arms.
Okay.
And then for the speech, S for speech, this is where a person, either they can't talk, they try to talk and no words come out, or when they do talk, it's gibberish. It doesn't make any sense. For those people, they don't know they're talking like that. They might not know there's something going on. But the person that's with them will notice that and say, hey, I think you're having a stroke. And the one thing we tell people, overreact with that. Don't just say, if they say, well, I don't want to go to the hospital, I'm fine. You go to the next room, you call 911. And they show up at the door, knock on the door, you say, oh, look who's here, come get them. They are trained to recognize signs and symptoms of a stroke, and like we say, time is the most important.
They can radio ahead and they know this FAST exam, and they can tell us that this person's having a stroke, we send them straight to the CT scanner, and we save 30, 45 minutes right there, and get the blood. They can draw the blood on the way into the hospital. We can be running that as they're in the CT scanner. We can give TPA right away and just save hours of time and millions of brain cells.
And I've had a lot of people who say they can tell the difference about 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes of getting that medicine. They can tell they get those feelings and movements back in their body. It's night and day.
Wow. All right. So I want to get into. So now you have a patient. They've had a stroke, varying degrees. Now they need this extensive after stroke treatment. So when they're in the hospital, what is the typical? And I know this is probably, I hate to use the word typical for patients, but typical
turnaround time on a patient in the hospital. Well, like I said, depending on the severity of the stroke, for light strokes, most of your time in the hospital is trying to diagnose what caused it. Because some strokes can be caused by people who have a irregular heart rhythm called AFib. And with AFib, a clot will form in the heart and it's shot to the lungs, or when we talk about stroke, to the brain. Well, if you have AFib, we're not going to discharge you without treating the cause. So a lot of that is to figure out why you had it. They can have carotid stenosis, blockage in the carotids in the neck. They can have patent, what we call PFO, patent hole in the heart. So those can be problems. There are different things that can cause it. So most of that time is spent figuring out what caused it so we can fix it. Start you on medicine for blood pressure, cholesterol medicine, and then you get discharged home. But they also evaluate you for rehab. So depending on that severity, you might go home with no rehab, or you might go and have to go to a rehab facility.
We do a swallowing study on the patient also to make sure that what their capabilities are as far as feeding is concerned. Before we don't want to try to feed you early on in the course if you can't swallow correctly. So that usually gets better as time goes on. And plus, while you're in the hospital, you're going to be seeing the physical therapist. They're going to start working on you immediately, trying to get your motor strength back so that can continue on in rehab.
All right. Have you unfortunately seen patients that don't have a lot of support in their life, either no children, no spouse, and they go home to a situation where they're not getting the continued care they need?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something we really need to work on as far as long-term rehab for all people with strokes. It's something that hopefully will get worked out someday, that where everybody can have that care that they need for rehab following strokes.
So do you think that this is something that insurance companies need to be more aware of and, maybe add a clause in or something? I know that's a whole other whole other beast of its own, but...
Yeah, most commercial insurance will cover that rehab. It's just, we just fall into situations where people aren't insured at all, and then that's where it becomes a bigger problem. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, so maybe there needs to be more education, advocacy on that side of it as well. For individuals who don't have enough or no insurance, and how important having all these different things in your life matter. Wow. Okay. I mean, you're just opening my mind up to a whole lot more questions and
there's more
things that need to be done. Not just in the state of Arkansas, but all across the United States.
Right.
I do want to backtrack a little bit and ask about some statistics concerning strokes. From your experience and research, who do strokes affect more, men or women, or is it just it doesn't discriminate?
Strokes, like you said, it really doesn't discriminate, but African Americans have a higher tendency of having strokes due to the comorbidities, hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol. Our culture, we have to make our food taste right, we do things to it.
Yes.
We fry it, and we just sometimes we need to step back, maybe grill out more, or to find different ways, alternatives to having that food.
Yeah, when you look at the national statistics down the Delta, down the Mississippi River, we're in the stroke zone as one of the highest stroke areas in the country.
Wow.
So we can make a really big impact in states like Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, all up and down the river. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So again, that shows that there's a need for, well, more, not necessarily more nutrition education, but access to the education. I'm from the Delta region. I grew up in Mariana, so I know what it's like living in the rural area.
From West Helena.
Okay. And so you know too what it's like living in those rural areas. So there's a lack of access sometimes to either technology to get to places. There's lack of transportation. There's a number of reasons why enough individuals don't get access to what's available to
So
them.
with that being said, St. Bernard's has joined partnership with UAMS and Arkansas Saves. Arkansas Saves has set up a network of hospitals. Someone's having stroke-like symptoms, you might think, I got to get to St. Bernard real quick. Well, if you're closer to a smaller spoke hospital, a smaller hospital, most of those have the capability of doing a CT scan and diagnosing a stroke and giving you TPA and then sending you to St. Bernard's or sending you to a larger hospital for interventions.
That's
So
awesome.
a lot of people don't know that. And the bigger thing is dialing 911.
Okay.
Yeah, most of the smaller hospitals are using telemedicine with the neurologist at UAMS, and they help them make the decision to give the TPA. And then we're a stroke center here at St. Bernard's, and they'll either transport that patient to St. Bernard's, or if they need some type of mechanical intervention, they would take them to UAMS for that. So they do that screening online while you're at a smaller spoke hospital.
All right. Well, we're going to put a pause right there because we're coming up on our first break. You're tuned in to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. Again, we're speaking with Mr. Mark Hogan, RN, stroke coordinator for St. Bernard's Medical Center, and Dr. Randy McComb, emergency director of St. Bernard's, and stroke team director. We'll be right back after these announcements.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
Do you let your wedding anniversary just pass you by? I'm Mark Merrill with today's Family Minute. As the years tick away, it's easy to treat your anniversary like it's no big deal. Well, even if you don't have an elaborate celebration, taking the time to honor your commitment can be uplifting for your marriage. So, at the very least, get a card, write a note, and share how much your spouse means to you. Tell them face-to-face you love them as well. Spend time with your spouse, whether it's a romantic evening out or a picnic in the park. Even if you're on a rocky stretch, use this day to focus on the positive. Recommit to your marriage and to each other. A wedding anniversary is worth celebrating. Remember, your family first.
Want to connect with Mark on Twitter? You can. Follow him at twitter.com/Mark Merrill.
Family Minute is made possible by the Kappa Nu Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a non-profit organization committed to service to all mankind. Kappa Nu Omega Alpha Kappa Alpha on Facebook and KNOMEGA1908.com.
Family Minute is brought to you by the Gears Foundation, a nonprofit organization providing students with assistance in their academic and career pursuits. Gears Foundation on Facebook, Gears_Inc. on Instagram, and the Gears Foundation at gmail.com.
Edgy Studios, 209 Union Street in Jonesboro, offers photography for portraits, weddings, and engagements, senior portraits, family and maternity shoots, and all occasions. Edgy Studios focuses on photography that is unique and outside of the norm. Owner Andrew Daly is available at 870-243-0308 or www.ejjistudios.com.
House of Details, located at 3915 East Highland in Jonesboro, is a proud supporter of KLEK, offering detailing on any type of vehicle, basic wash, hand wash, shampoo, interior cleaning, waxing, buffering, headlight restoration, pickup, delivery, and more, with the motto of anything mean we can clean. Details at 870-273-5187. House of Details on Facebook and at klekfm.org.
The Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated presents our Sonia D. Williams Scholarship Breakfast, Saturday, March 30th at 9 a.m. at the Arkansas State University Spring River Room in the Student Union. The scholarship breakfast will recognize the winners of the Sonia D. Williams Scholarship, which is given each year to deserving African American high school seniors in the area. The featured speaker is Arkansas State Coordinator for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Miss Deborah Bland. The theme is "Oh, the Places You Will Go." A full breakfast meal will be served. Ticket and other information is available at www.jonesboroalumnidst.org or from any member of the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Experience the Joy with Bishop Adrian R. Rogers, pastor of Fullness of Joy Church, 2120 Thorn Street, Jonesboro, Arkansas, 72401. Wednesday night, Word and Worship, 7 p.m. Prayer Thursday night at 7 p.m. Sunday School, 9:30 a.m. Sunday morning worship, 11 o'clock a.m. And our Sunday night live service at 7 p.m.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
Welcome back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. My special guests today are Dr. Randy McComb and Mr. Mark Holden, and they're both here discussing stroke awareness. And I hope that you tuned in for the first half. We talked a lot about some various signs and symptoms and types of stroke, and we're going to get back into our conversation because this is a topic that can be talked about for days and days and on end because there's so much information, so much research, so many statistics. And before we went to break, we were talking about, men versus women. But I want to ask about age ranges. Again, does stroke discriminate against age?
No, it doesn't. Children can have strokes. Different childhood diseases can have strokes. Sickle cell patients, they're at risk for stroke because, and I won't go into detail, I won't bore everybody with the physiology of it, but, people with sickle cell, diabetics, different congenital heart conditions can have strokes. And then, typically we see it with the elderly population.
Okay.
But, with them, the body slows down. There's different things that go on with the body. A lot of those are sometimes put on blood thinners. So with them, we typically see hemorrhagic strokes a lot of times because they fall. They have those small pets or rugs and they fall and they have a head bleed. And sometimes they're independent at home and this is happening. So a lot of times we don't get to see them in time to do an intervention. So we try to teach little kids who have grandparents how to recognize signs and symptoms of stroke. There's a story called Grandpa's Crooked Smile that kind of goes into more of a recognition for children. It puts it at their level. That way they can recognize what's going on, that something's going on with Grandpa and Grandma, and we can get them to call 911 to do intervention with them a lot expediently.
I would love to see more youth engagement when it comes to all health issues because going back to me, I saw family members having different issues, but it wasn't talked about that much around the children. It was children go play, children go, go away, the adults are talking. And so at some point we grow up and we don't know why someone is in a wheelchair, why someone's on a walker, why someone can't do whatever. We were never told very much growing up, and then now we see this family member in this condition and and then someone dies and we don't know why they died. And so we need to engage our young people in these discussions so that they're not caught off guard and then they have to deal with these emotions of the family member being sick or passing away from whatever the condition is. And have you encountered, Dr. Randy, someone comes in with a stroke and they have a young child with them and the child is frantic, or have you encountered those?
Yeah, I've had patients brought in where the child was actually the person that notified 911 or notified another family member that their grandparent was having problems talking, or they talked to them on the phone and they realized that they were having slurred speech and called 911. So that really makes you feel good that we're doing something out there to educate younger people. We've made a couple of talks in some elementary schools about FAST and about how to recognize stroke in their grandparents or parents. So I think that's a big emphasis that we need to continue to have, is educating elementary, junior high, and high school students about stroke.
Okay. I want to say good morning to a few people. Mrs. Emma Agnew, Miss Alexis Scott, and Mrs. Alexis tagged a bunch of different people. Thank you. Hopefully they tune in and everyone starts getting this information. And Miss Denise Jones, thank you all for checking in. Please share this video and please start having these conversations when you're in the beauty shop, barbershop, wherever you are, around the dinner table. People don't sit at the dinner table anymore.
and you know, our league team is planning to do some education. We're going to get with some of the beauty salons and barbershops to try to hit that population, hit those people who frequent those places. Because, you know, the big thing about stroke, you know, is the education. Okay. And not everybody just runs up and say, hey, teach me this. So we've got to go every nook and cranny to try to get these people the information.
And you got to go where the people are versus expecting the people to always come to you.
Right. And so, you know, we do have the Health Expo that's coming up in April, April 13th and 14th. So that's going to be a lot of information there. We're going to have our big mega brain that our Saves is going to let us borrow on the 13th. It's going to be able to come in and get some education on different aspects of strokes and different ailments of the brain. A lot of free giveaways also. So.
Okay. Well, hey, if you don't go for anything else, go for the education as well. But, you know, who doesn't like a good giveaway?
The Mega Brain is really neat. You can actually walk through the brain. And so it's above you, and you're looking at different areas of the brain. It's really popular, especially with kids. And
so does it have lights and colors and all different? Wow. That'd be really wonderful to... as an adult, I would love to see that as well. And I love seeing things that are interactive. Is it labeled? Are the different parts of the brain labeled?
Yes. As it talks about different things, because there's like one spot and you go inside and it talks about an aneurysm. And a lot of people don't realize, you know, you could have stroke-like symptoms and it could be something, maybe a brain tumor or aneurysm. And you won't get it diagnosed until, you get it checked out. One of the things I tell people who go home on a blood thinner, I tell them, be careful if you fall, you'll hit your head. People with hypertension, if you get a raging headache that won't go away with Tylenol or just won't go away, it could be a sign that you have a bleed. And I try not to scare people, but if I don't tell you this stuff, you won't know.
Right. And then what about injuries? People who have high impact jobs, play sports, just a variety of things. People who are prone to injuries, should they be on more high alert of getting a stroke, having a stroke?
That's funny because a lot of times there are different disease processes that can mask a stroke. Someone comes in with what we call syncope, a dizziness that shows up like a stroke, but it could be something else. It could be vertigo. We've had patients who come in with other life-threatening situations, and when we realize or get them in, then you come to find out later that they also had a stroke. So it changes things, You have to be really diligent. Our nurses and our physicians are trained to dig in and try to figure out what's going on with the patient to treat them. So.
One thing is, anyone that's in a real active life and on blood thinners and they do hit their head, we really want to evaluate those people. We try to get a CT immediately on people who've hit their head that are on a blood thinner. So many people who've had a stroke and have been in atrial fibrillation, their heart in an irregular rhythm, will be on a blood thinner after they've had a stroke. And so they just need to be aware that if they do fall and hit their head, even if it's a small bump on their head and they're on a blood thinner, that we really want to see them and get a CT scan on them.
Okay. And then now let's go into some more after the stroke. Can someone recover fully or kind of get back to where they were before the stroke?
Absolutely. And one really good thing about our clot-busting drug TPA is that the research has shown that it may not completely reverse a stroke on all people. Maybe 20% of the people you give it to, it'll completely reverse it. But there's a 40% group that would be able to completely take care of themselves, put their clothes on, function in a normal life, versus having total care, someone having to help dress them. So that's the biggest advantage of the drug, is you see in those that you change from being dependent to remaining independent in their life. But there again, there's 20% that are going to get have complete resolution of their symptoms. So there's 60 or 70% that are going to get better, and maybe 30% that aren't going to get better from the drug. But the odds are in your favor. You're going to get better.
Okay. I was looking through this booklet you gave us, and if anyone, well, right now we have more Spanish information, but you can stop by our studio. We'll be happy to let you have some of the handouts that we have.
And I can get you more.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much. And this one is called Explaining Stroke. And there's a lot of information in this little booklet that will be great to have on hand for families to start discussing. Make it a weekly family night. Let's talk about some things. So please consider keeping some information around the house and engaging your family in these type of discussions. I have a Facebook comment from Kanisha. Please hope I said that right. Kanisha Scott says that this is good info and very much needed education. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for the tag, Alexis. Well, thank you, Alexis, for tagging different people. I'm happy that someone is getting some great information out of this. But I want to talk about this one that's very interesting. We've always heard, your brain is divided into two parts, left and right, and the different parts of your brain affect different aspects of your being. Right. And so in this booklet, it talks about the left hemisphere affects your spoken language, number skills, written, some more of your, I guess, those intellectual, educational, those things. The right hemisphere, music, spatial orientation, art, creativity, so that artsy side that, right.
So what you typically see is that someone who has a right-sided stroke on the right side will have left-sided weakness. And then vice versa. If they have a left-sided stroke, they have right-sided weakness. Now, one of the different symptoms that you have is the speech. It's called aphasia. That's where someone either can't talk, but a lot of times it's where they have like a hesitation. You'll ask them a question, and they just they know the word. You can see it in their face. They know the word they're looking for, but it just won't fall out. And so that's a telltale sign that something's not right.
I often ask my patients, do you know how to answer the question, but you just can't answer it? That's a good thing to ask your family member if they seem to be struggling trying to get words out. And they'll be able to tell you that, yeah, I want to try to say this, but I can't. Okay.
And so is that something that the physical therapists or occupational therapists work with the patient on? After they've had a stroke, they take the assessment of what they need and what's going on, where they are, and then create a plan to help them work through that.
Absolutely.
Now, most people, I'm learning again what occupational versus physical therapists are and what they actually do and how they differ. So, what do you recommend to patients, or what type of therapy do you recommend, or do they eventually see both types, occupational?
They'll be screened for both. Like say someone's retired, they're not necessarily needing occupational, but occupational is not, you think job. It's more the daily living things like cooking and possibly driving or dressing themselves. Whereas physical therapy is overall physical strength.
Okay. All right. And so do you find that people who take your advice, your prescriptions, and they do the things they're supposed to do, they fare a whole lot better than people who think they can do it on their own? Or does it just all go back to what type of stroke they had?
Well, as I go over the different strokes that we have in the hospital, you typically see some people who will leave the ED-AMA, against medical advice, and because they had a minor stroke. And I try to catch people before they're discharged to kind of warn them. Like I'm the mean man. I try to scare them, but I tell them, you've had a stroke, which puts you at a disposition to have another stroke. So I try to warn them, know the signs and symptoms, because if you have another stroke, you need to do the same thing. You need to get to the hospital as soon as possible. So those people that have those minor, like TIAs, they need to know, you're not out of the window, you're not out of the woods. You can have another stroke.
Okay. And then for those that I know we talked about this in the first part, but I want to just kind of still recap and tie in. We talked about diet. And looking at demographics, about females and age. Gender and age. So let's look at demographics. I know you mentioned, Mr. Holden, Mr. Mark, that more African Americans are more likely. But what do the statistics show for those in other ethnic groups that are not black?
Well, pretty much it's Afro-American and followed by Caucasians. I know the people in Asia have a little better diet and lifestyle than we do. They're not as suffering from it near as much in Europe or as in Asia as we are. And we add a lot of salt to our diet. We eat a lot of fried foods, and especially along the Delta. And I think that gets our cholesterol up high, which just gives us another risk factor. And
so everybody has a higher risk. But typically,
if you look at coronary artery disease and the risk factors for heart attacks and coronary artery disease, almost the same risk factors exist for stroke. And so it's a lifestyle: smoking, controlling your cholesterol, controlling your blood pressure, controlling your blood sugar, and then just eating foods that are better for you.
In your experience in the emergency room and just your medical profession and your medical career, how many patients would you say that have had more than one stroke that you've encountered?
Several. Many of them.
I
Yeah.
can see like 3 or 4 people a month that have had stroke or stroke-like symptoms. They come back, and it might be an extenuation of the previous stroke, or it might be a new stroke in a different area. Typically, and I was going to say that typically most of the stroke victims that we see through our hospital are Caucasian. Very few black, but it might be because a lot of them don't say anything or get treatment.
Wow.
Not that they're not having stroke.
They're just not
coming to the hospital.
And then with the ones that are repeaters, do you notice that they're not following your directives?
Well,
some of them.
And this is kind of a catch-22.
Okay.
Eating healthy, exercising, working out, you still have those risk factors, those things that are happening in your body. God, when He created the body, He created a perfect machine, and it's made to fix itself. So some of the times when you have hypertension, and I'll go in detail on this one, with high blood pressure, your vessels are being pushed against from the inside.
Okay.
If you leave a water hose on and you come back out, that new water hose that was real smooth will have kinks in it and bulges and leaks. Well, your body patches those up, fixes those. So it patches it with plaque and cholesterol. And as time goes on, those patches and those places of injury will build up, so that vessel will slowly close.
Okay.
And so eventually it'll get to where the blood flow that goes through it either closes off all the way or enough where you get stroke-like symptoms.
Well, and that reminds me about something anatomically that happens when you have a stroke, is that you have an area around the area of infarct that is called the penumbra, and that's an area that's salvageable. So that you've got this area around the stroke that can go either way. It can go on an infarct, and you can have a real deficit, or you can come to the ED. We can give you a medication to open that up and save that area, large area of brain around the infarct site. So it's why it's so important to come in early and let us evaluate you just to see if you're eligible for the drug.
And so then we'll go back to disease processes. Diabetics are at high risk for having stroke because their blood sugar. One thing we learned in nursing school is that sugar destroys vessels, and it destroys small vessels in the eyes and the heart. And in the same way, sugar breaks the vessel and your body heals it up. So then you start getting those small vessels blocked.
And I know someone personally who has had a stroke that is a diabetic, and they're having so many complications since then, and they've recently been put on dialysis. Then they had some eye issues and some other things going on. And one thing his spouse has shared with me is that since having the stroke, it has affected his personality and mood, his
Well, you know, that's kind of a diagnosis. Like if someone came and told you had something that could end your life or it's going to change your lifestyle. People have stroke, have depression. That's one thing they have to deal with. The lifestyle changes. There should be systems set up to help support these people, support people when they're having these changes.
And what about other mood changes, such as not being as pleasant to be around?
Typically that happens, the area of the brain that controls the personality is the frontal lobe. And so if they have an infarction, a stroke in that area, you can see behavioral changes.
Wow.
And one of the, anyone who has what we call altered mental status, we CT them immediately when they come to the ER, because that can be a subtle signs of a stroke. Just some change in someone's personality. They might be a little more aggressive, might just have an anger issue. So anyone with an altered mental status that's not being caused by a drug or alcohol, we need to assume that might be a stroke.
We have another comment from Ms. Emma Williams, Agnew. She says, my family has a history of stroke. I have had a TIA and am on blood thinners. Thanks for this great information. As a senior citizen, how do I know if some of the memory symptoms are simply because of age? And we might have to touch on that a little bit more.
Well, I mean, your physician can, actually run you through a series of tests, just little mental exam tests that can tell the difference between a stroke and maybe a dementia type change.
Okay. All right, and we'll touch on that just a little bit more. We're going to take another quick break. You're tuned in to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back after these announcements.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
We're back with Money Matters. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. A major part of managing your money is learning basic financial concepts that can improve your decision making. Let's say a men's store is offering 1/3 off on a $600 suit for today only. For a $200 savings, it might be worth checking the sale out on my lunch break. But if I consider the value of my time, say $100 an hour, it's not worth driving to a store 2 hours away, i.e. $400, to get the discount. I'd be better off buying the suit at full price at a time and location that's convenient for me. By the way, you really need to assign a dollar value to your time, because time really is money. Opportunity cost is a great way to understand that while catching sales or discounts may be a good thing, chasing them, especially if it results in spending you have not budgeted for, is usually not. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. from Money Matters, a product of American Urban Radio Networks.
Money Matters is made possible by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization focused on joy in our sisterhood, power in our voice, and service in our hearts. www.jonesboroalumnidst.org.
Money Matters is brought to you by Bancorp South, offering checking, savings, loans, credit cards, and wealth management. 5 locations in Jonesboro to serve you. www.bancorpsouth.com or 870-972-9800.
Money Matters is brought to you by the Gears Foundation, a nonprofit organization providing students with assistance in their academic and career pursuits. Gears Foundation on Facebook, Gears_Inc. on Instagram, and the Gears Foundation at gmail.com.
KLEK's Spring Fund Drive is March 18th through the 20th. Help us reach our goal of 100 new supporters donating at least $20 a month and 25 new business sponsors underwriting at least $150 a month by donating a thank you gift today. We will pass your gift on to listeners who donate during the fund drive. No donation is too small or too weird. If you have a unique gift or service you'd like to donate, find the form at our website, klekfm.org, and click on Fund Drive.
KLEK thanks CJ Pepper and the staff of Life Strategies Counseling Incorporated for helping people through hard times in life such as depression, family issues, stress, abuse, and more. They offer counseling and therapy for all ages, individuals, families, and groups. They are located at 1217 Stone Street. Phone number 1-866-972-1268 or online at lscihelp.com.
The Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated was established on January 1st, 1977, originally serving Blytheville, Arkansas, and now serving Jonesboro, Blytheville, Osceola, Marion, and West Memphis, Arkansas. Today, the chapter continues to make an impact by focusing on Alpha's national community outreach initiatives such as My Brother's Keeper, A Voteless People is a Hopeless People, Go to High School, Go to College, Project Alpha, Boy Scouts, and the March of Dimes. The Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is committed to Alpha's mission of developing leaders, promoting brotherhood and academic excellence, while providing service and advocacy to the community. More information about the Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is available at MOL Alphas on Facebook or via email at molalphas@gmail.com.
We at KLEK would like to extend a sincere thank you to all of our underwriters and sponsors. If you would like to sponsor or underwrite our programming and help us to educate, entertain, and empower the community, our number is 870-203-9951. Our email address is klek1025fm@gmail.com. The website address is klekfm.org. Again, thank you for listening.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
Welcome back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. Again, my special guest today has been Mr. Mark Holden, RN, Stroke Coordinator for St. Bernard's Medical Center, and Dr. Randy McComb, ED Director of St. Bernard's and Stroke Team Director. I can't thank you all enough. For joining us today. I'm trying to get my camera right. All right, for joining us today and sharing this wonderful information, valuable information. And I'm very grateful for everyone that has tuned in, whether you're listening in your car or work or wherever you are. And those that are watching our Facebook Live feed, I hope that you are taking away some valuable information that will help you or your family or your friends and start having more discussions about these things that affect our overall health. Involve the children. I can't say that enough. Start engaging our young people in these discussions. They don't need to be blindsided by something happening to a family member and they don't know what's going on. And everyone's all the adults are talking, but no one's talking to the kids. And so in this last segment, I'm going to give you all the floor to wrap up any final information or recap things that we've already gone over.
Well, I just want to thank you for allowing us to be here to try to spread the word in the community about stroke, and it's something that I'm passionate about. I think that we can really make a difference. I know if you look at the RSAVE statistics, that program I think is 10 years, something like that, 10th year anniversary, and it's really raised Arkansas up the statistic ladder as far as preventing stroke, and it made a huge difference. And I think we're doing some good work here in Jonesboro, and we'll continue to do that.
Yes. So, for me, I just want to stress to people to just don't ignore the signs and symptoms. A lot of the patients that I see that come into the hospital, a lot of times the one factor that they have in common with their stroke is that the time. They're out of the window for any kind of intervention. Now, you have the right to refuse it, but it's nice to be able to get there and that we can offer you something that can potentially bring you back to your baseline. Education is the key. I'm trying to get out there and let everybody know, don't ignore the symptoms. Do some lifestyle changes, just change one thing. Stop smoking, moderate your drinking, your eating habits, become less sediment, get off the couch and walk, exercise. We have to teach our new generation, because these same things we suffer, my grandfather and my father suffer from these things. We have to teach our next generation how to ward off those things.
Yes. Now some kids are stuck to the video games. Mm-hmm. Now, while they may be active in after-school sports, they get home and grab some snacks, and it's video games, screen time, so there's some balance, but at the same time, they're sitting in school all day. They have maybe 2 hours of this activity, then the more hours of sitting and not doing. And then on the weekend, if they're not playing any sports, or if it's off season, well, that's a whole other story. So let's keep the kids active and keep them aware of what's going on, because health issues do not discriminate.
No, they don't.
So
They don't.
we want to make sure our children live the longest, healthiest life possible. A lot of people kind of get in their feelings when you start talking about changing their diet, and especially in our Black community, we talk about don't take away my soul food.
I'm gonna have my fried catfish now.
We just need to learn how to adjust and balance. Right. That's all. Adjust and balance. You can still have great food, and tasty food, but it can just be prepared just a little bit better. So start making those changes once a day, once a month, once a week, and then it will become a habit for you. All right. And I want to let everyone know that I put the website link for R Saves into the Facebook Live feed. It's arsaves.uams.edu. Website with a lot of valuable information, so go check it out when you have some time. All right. So any other... let's go back into right quick, because we didn't tap into this enough. I remember talking about it when I had someone here that talked about smoking, but tell us how smoking affects your arteries and how it can also attribute to a stroke.
Well, it really accelerates the deposit of plaque in your arteries that Mark was alluding to earlier, and making those arteries where they're not as elastic as they were, stiff, and easier for that plaque to break loose and go downstream to your brain or into a coronary artery to either have a heart attack or a stroke. So it really accelerates that deposit.
All right. Well, in the last 2 minutes, any final information, any shout outs you want to give to anyone?
Well, I just want to say, no one should be afraid to come to the ER and think that they're going to be putting us out, or, they're wasting our time. If they have anything that they feel like is abnormal, could be possibly a stroke. It takes us less than 5 minutes to do a CT scan on you and to evaluate you and make a decision. So that's what we're there for.
All right. Mr. Mark?
I just want everybody to just stay healthy and stay, faithful to their lifestyle, and just try to be better.
All right, and don't forget, coming up in April, we hope to have you guys back, or someone back before April 13th for your Health Expo. If we can't get you back, we'll definitely help spread the word.
Thank you.
The when and where, so everyone can go out and support this event. And if you have a community event, please reach out to these gentlemen to come and represent with information tables, and they'll bring some fun little toy. You brought us some brains, and I think they all walked away. Somehow the brains grew legs and walked away.
That's the big one.
So they have the little colorful, squishy. It's a stress reliever. Stress ball. Yeah. So please bring these gentlemen out so they can share this wonderful information with the community. All right. So we thank you guys again for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
So when you leave here, what's next?
Knee deep, go back in and start fighting again.
All right. So do you have any patients lined up? Or just you go back to the ER?
No, actually, I worked last night, so
okay.
I'm gonna get some rest.
Go home and crash. So you got to go back to the hospital.
I've got to go back to work.
All right. Well, we hope that you all have a great day. You get some rest, and thank you all for joining us. And thank you everyone out there who supports KLEK. We are your community radio station. We could not do what we do without you. So don't forget, next week, starting May 18th, is our fun drive. So if you love what we do, please consider supporting us, and we'll share more information at a later time. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority.